Important. All right, so yeah, back to starting recording now. The lab assignment is here. You should download this, and the in that lab, you if you looked on your D2L, you'd find there's two files to download. One is a compressed file with the solution to Lab 4, and the other one is these instructions. So you should take those instructions and look at them. The idea is we're not actually changing the content much, but we're going to be using a lot of CSS to style these pages to make them look the way that we want. So the main highlights are we're going to have a 800 pix wide page. So it's a fixed layout. We're going to have a column which is 200 pix and and another column, and then we're going to have another page which just has um, uh, uh, boxes in it. Those boxes being a size, whereas if you multiply them by 3, I guess that's still less than 800 pix, and you'll find that there's a little channel in between them. Now, how's that achieved? That's achieved by using CSS. So CSS is the tool for us here. I think I've got some CSS. Yes, here. So this is our first. This is the page on the contact support. And if you look at the actual body of the contact support, there are some adjustments that you have to make to the body. You may notice that the actual contents are the same as before. We're not changing the contents of that body much, but what we are doing is we're adding a div which contains the entire page. So a div is short for division, and it's just a element which we can use to enclose text or whatever. In this case, we're enclosing an entire page. We could have lots of divs. You can have divs inside of divs, but we're making a single div, which we call container. And that container then is going to have in it all the elements of that page. So the div ends here. Where it ends, we don't have to say what its name is, but you'll see that. Well, let me highlight it here. It it opens at the start of the body. Well, it's not showing the. Anyways, it opens at the start of the body and it contains the entire page. But everything else in there you've seen before. So all we're doing to the body is we're adding a div tag. Then the style we're going to sorry, in the div, we give it a name. We give it an ID. So we could make a class, and I think I've shown you a class, but this, yeah, and we have done class here, right? We did a class here on a, we can do that on any tag. But in here, we did it with the headings so that we could get different widths for a couple of the columns in our table. But here, we're using an ID. ID is a bit different than a class. An ID is only going to be used once. So as a class, we can use a class multiple times, but we only have one ID here, which is container, and that's right because the whole page is the container. And so we've got some styling which affects that container. So we're saying that the whole page is going to be 800 pix wide. We've got some margins. We're going to let those margins be automatic. We got some padding. The padding is going to keep our whatever's inside the div away from the edges of that element, which in this case is the page. And that's it. That's what we have to do to the contact support. The product, that's going to be a little different. Okay, so the product, it's called product details. And if you look at the instructions, where instructions again? That's in a Word document. The product. So now, so that was doing this thing. All we did was we put it into. So here we need two columns, okay, and one of them is going to be 200 pix wide. So it's a little bit different. So let's go ahead and look at that. Okay, so let's look at the body of that. So again, we're using the container, but we're adding another thing, right? We've got two divs inside the container. So we've got a div which we're going to use just for the photo. And so that's going to start and end where our photo is. And then we've got another div, which is basically everything else. So this is going to be our first column, and we've given it an ID. We call it product photo. And this is going to be our second column, and we've given it an ID, and we've called it product detail. So this div starts there and ends there, and this div starts there and ends at the bottom. Yeah. Oh, very important thing here too. At the very end of the page, we've got so this div here, that's our container div. But at the end of the page, when we finish the product details um, uh, div, we add another little div, and we just do this grid clear. And the reason for that is because we've got this grid. When we look at the output here in the Word document, uh, yeah, well, for this one and the other one, we've got this, the way the columns are set up. What we want to do is we want to drop the columns at the end of the page so that otherwise we don't get our dividing lines very well. All right, so that's that. We're going to use grid clear in this page and in the product list page. It's more important in the product list page. So we've created a few more divs. You should pay attention to this and maybe have another look in your at this video a couple of times. So we've got a div which contains the entire page, right? So that div starts there and ends there. We've got a div at the very end, which is just for grid clear. Okay. And then we've got, and see, grid clear, what we do is we clear it in the CSS. So this name must be the same as the name of the ID of the grid that we're declaring as a div at the bottom. Then we've got a div that holds the balance of the main part of the page, which is the product details. And then we've got another div which holds the photo itself. Okay, and so to the styling, how are we styling that? Most of the styling is the same from Lab 4, but we've got some new bits of styling here. We're styling our container. That looks the same, right? So you could copy that straight from the other thing that we've done. But we have to style the main. I think we've already styled that. That was from before. Yeah, so the things that we have to style are here. We need to get the column for the photo, 200 pics, and float the column to the photo to the left. And then we need to style the image itself. We style the image so that it's by a percentage, so that it doesn't go outside of the column. It doesn't try and expand the column. It fits within the column. So we can do that by percentage. If the column became smaller, then the image will become smaller. The image is 100% the width of the element in which the image is put, and the image is put inside the element of the div called product photo, because there's the image. It's inside the div product photo, and so however wide the product photo is, that's how wide the image is going to be, and it's going to be 200 pics. The product details is allowed to be 600 pics, and again the text is floated to the left, and so that gives us our two columns. One column 200 pics, one column 600 pics, and then very important at the end we have our grid clear, and so the style. A lot of that stuff that you see, there's a lot of stuff there. Was stuff that's given to you, right? That was the end of that was stuff that was from the solution to problem 4. Then the stuff that's new is sorry, not main. Main was not new. Is that we created these new divs: product photo div, product photo image. So this is for the image only inside the product photo, and then the product details. So two divs and an image are styled. So you know this. There's no comma here, right? This means that this is the image inside the product photo element. The image inside. If we had a comma there, it would mean the product photo element and the image. But no, this is a very specific image. This is only the image which exists inside the product photo div. So that's that one. All right, and so the last one This one is a more tricky one, I think. The last one is, again, a lot of that stuff's going to look familiar. But if we look at the main, what we've done is we've got a container again, which contains the entire thing, right? So that div goes to the end, and then just before the end, we've got the grid clear thing again, and we style the grid clear same as we did in the previous one. All right. So the main container, that's styled the same in this one as it was. So container is the same in all three of those documents. Okay, so what else we got going here? We've got some classes going. Okay, so we've got a class called product, and we've got a class called product image. So the class called product contains the image class. So when we do a class, we can have multiples. So we've got multiple images here. We got like 9 images or something, right? And they're all going to be styled the same. So every image is inside a class called product image, and every product image is inside a class called product. Well, why is that? Because the class called product also holds another class which just has a description. And so we can style this separately. So you see inside the div for each product, and this is copied, right? I mean, copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. There's 9 of these, and they're all the same. They're all the same. So once you understand one, you'll understand them all. Yeah, I'll talk about the grid clear again at the end. So so for each of these, so pay close attention to this, right? We've got a div for the entire page, and then inside that we've got 9 times, I think it is, however many images we've got. Well, it doesn't look like it's 9. 1, 2, 3. Maybe it's only 5 or 6. But however many images we've got a class for each one, and so that class it contains 2 other divs. One is for the image and one is for the description, and that allows us to style each of those differently. Okay, so now at the end, we've got the grid clear, and that's important because we need what it is we're going to create this page, and it's going to have it's going to format it into a grid. It's kind of like a table without doing a table. And so in CSS, we can do that with a grid idea, right? But it requires that you close the grid at the end. And so we do that by creating a new div, which is just empty. See, there's nothing inside this div. But it allows us to say, okay, at the end of this sort of fake table, which is not really a table, we're going to clear it. And so that's what we do here, so that we don't continue on with any more grid. So we're actually defining the things that are going to be our grid. The things that are going to be our grid sort of start in the container, and they stop when we hit the grid clear div. So it's every other div. Sorry, I closed that. Why did I do that? Where is that? That was yeah. So all right. So now let's look at the CSS. So the CSS here, the only new stuff, because the container, that's the same as in the other two pages. But what's new is we've got all of these classes, and we need to style them. So we've got, so for the image, now again, this is the image inside the product image classes. So you see the dot in front of product image? That means that's the product image class. And the product image class refers to each one of these things. There's our product image class. There's 6 of them, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I don't know, 6. Yes, I thought it was 9, but it's turns out it's 6. So we got 6 of those, and they're all going to be styled the same, and they're all styled with this. Now this part here is not actually styling the product image class. It's styling the image inside the product image class, right? And so the image is going to have a height. They're all going to have a height of 258 pixels, and the width is going to be auto so that they fit into the grid. Then the product image class itself is going to be center aligned, so that the image, when we look at the image, it's going to be in the middle of that box that we've made for it. The image is going to sit in the middle of the box. It's going to be exactly 258 pixels high. So that allows them to sort of standardize on the page. That's kind of important. If you miss out the styling, the image height, then you're going to get the pictures all different sizes depending on what is the size of the image as it was saved as a JPEG file or a PNG file. Now the product that actually refers to this. These are all classes, right? The product class is going to be the box that the product image and its what do you call that, a caption are inside. So if we look at the code, we'll see that what we've got in each case is we've got an image and then we've got a caption, and they're all inside this thing called product. So product represents the box with the dotted lines. Product is the box, and it's a class. And so they're all the same. And so they are styled all the same, so that those boxes are all the same. And so how do we do that? We do that by, in our CSS, we say, okay, so each one of those boxes is going to be exactly 258 pixels wide. If you multiply 258 pixels by 3, you'll find that it's less than 800. And so we got a little bit of room for these channels. We got a border, which is dash gray. That's the dotted line around the box. All right, we're floating to the left, and we're using some margin on the left and the bottom to keep the things away from it. And that's that. Now the product description, that's the thing at the bottom, right, with the words, and we're going to make it center aligned. And if you look at that, you'll see that yes, the words are center aligned. And so that's what's happening there. No decoration on our for our A tags, and then the clear. It's a lot, and I kind of went through it very fast, but that's basically what you have to do. This one here is the big work because you got to do this one from scratch because you didn't have a product list HTML. So you're going to kind of make that, I think. I don't think that one existed. Oh, I don't think so. Yeah, no. And so you've got all those images. Now notice I put those images in a folder called IMG. In this case, whatever you call your folder where you keep your images, you need to do that. I have given you all of these images, though. The images are there for you in the dist 6. So it's kind of a big exercise. This is where the rubber meets the road, right? Still people waiting to get in? Surely not. I think we got them in. So I think that was an old message. Okay, so I'm going to pause recording and wait for some questions. Will, okay, so just on that, yeah, the hash means it's an ID, and the dot means it's a class. And the main difference is that an ID can only be used once, so we only have one container, and a class is when we want to have multiple things and we want to style them all the same. So we've styled that product many times. There's 6 products and they all get styled the same way. So that's the main difference. Any other questions? All right, so about the div. So the div is just is short for division, and it's a way of dividing up a web page. And when we divide up a web page, we usually give it a name. And so the name could be a class name. So we could have lots of parts of a web page that are the same so that they could be styled the same. Or it could be an ID, in which case we work with just one of them. So what we've done here is we've divided this page up into lots of different elements. And each one of those elements, we wanted to give them a name so that we could style them differently. And so the simplest way of doing that is just to create a div tag. Div tag just means this is a division of that page, and we're going to treat it a little differently. And so I'll give it a name, and then I can use that name in the CSS to style it differently than others. And so it's a really, really useful tool. You're going to be finding yourself using it a lot, the div because it's your way of focusing in on a particular part of the web page and just doing something specific just to something right there without well, I mean, there's other ways you could do that, right? I mean, if we know the tag, but the problem is you might be using this tag lots of times, right? Like the image tag. You could style all the images the same, or well, what are some other tags we got in there? Oh, well, a table tag. But it could be that you just have one particular thing that you just want to get in on that, right? And so we're going to maybe identify it with a an ID or a class, and if it's sort of within another part of the page, we'll put it in a div. And so the container here, we use that so that we could style the entire page. And so we said, okay, we could have just done that with, we could have just styled the body, to be honest, because that container goes all the way from the opening of the body tag to the end. But to be honest, the reason why we use the container is kind of how you say protocol or practice. That's just a common practice in web pages is to make a div called a container, and that's going to be something where you're going to style everything rather than just using the body and styling the body. And so it gives you a little bit more flexibility. And so, but in this case, basically, it is the entire body of this page. But the protocol, the practice, the best practice is to create a div on which you can do all your styling for the page. Then we've broken up that page into lots of different parts. And so the easiest way to do that is with the div. And so each div can be given a different name, or you could have a whole lot of divs with the same name, in which case they'd be a class. And I hear myself repeating myself, so maybe I'm going to stop and ask you, did I explain that to you? Record it again. So yeah, just reviewing that. The thing that you've got to do is look at your divs. I'm showing you all of the code there. That's the contact support. Hopefully, I've explained that to you in a way that's understandable. The product details, the things that was new was our container. That's the same as in the other one, and also all of these IDs here for the photos. That's the product details. Yeah. This one was just the one with two columns. And so we just had these divs, one for the image and one for the details. And we set them equal to these different widths, one of 600 and one of 200. Where was that? 600 and 200. Then the last one was maybe the more tricky one with the three columns. And so that one we had a lot of divs. That was a lot of our discussion is what's all those divs. But you'll notice that there's 6 sort of chunks of code here, which are almost identical. This is almost identical to this. Once you've done one, you've got it right because it's going to be the same for the others. And it's just a matter of getting the divs in the same way, and then they're all styled the same. And so that's basically what you're up on against in that exercise.